Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi barakatuh, everybody. This is your host, Preacher Moss, the host of the SOS, the Shout Out Show. First of all, I want to say thank you. I feel honored to be back in front of you. It's always a blessing and a mercy to be able to spend time with you this way. That's number one. And number two, brothers and sisters, is those who are coming for the first time. Some of you tuned in for the first time yesterday. I just want to say thank you for coming on board. You didn't have to do it. You came. I appreciate you. And hopefully we'll be able to get something out of this discussion. Number two, for the people that come in on the regular, that manage to check the show out a couple times a week, give comments, give support, I want to thank you because you're the group that keeps us going here at the Shout Out Show. We don't have a big staff, we don't have a big production. We already know that, but the heart of the show is really about us brothers and sisters getting together and having these conversations. Some of them funny, some of them enlightening, some of them difficult. But I think it's important that we do get together and do that. Today's topic is one of those topics. Today's topic is why I talk about my people, my Muslim brothers and sisters. And I'm going to talk in a public way. This is not a in your house Muslim brother and sister in the masjid conversation, because I think that's one of the things that's been hampering us. We're not talking out loud about what our concerns are. We're trying to make it a very cliquish, or we only talk to this group, we don't want to talk to that group. I don't want to do that anymore. And I have a couple things I want to give a shout out to Sister Reed. Sister Reed did craft services today, everybody. I'm letting everyone know before I get to the crux of my talk that this sister made smoked turkey with barbecue sauce, deviled eggs, and deviled egg and potato salad. I'm just telling y'all, if you don't see me on the show tomorrow, blame it on Reed, because I'm getting ready to lay out of this thing. And I'm going to welcome people. Sister Jasmine, all the way from the UK, thank you for coming. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody. Brother McCall, thank you for coming. I would invite all of you to chime in on this topic because I thought about it quite a long time. And I was like, I can't get it out of my head. I've been seeing things on television regarding Muslims, entertainment regarding Muslims, statements regarding Muslims. And I'm thinking back to a time where we were a lot more careful about what we said and a lot more careful and reserved about what we put out in the public as entertainment and consumption, brothers and sisters. Because all those things have a lot to do with the topic I'm going to talk about today, the truth about Muslim identity in the mainstream. The truth about Muslim identity in the mainstream, brothers and sisters, is all the people you think are enemies, all the people you think are oppressors, they think that you're their friend. They think that they've been as successful at actually breaking the Muslim image on TV. When I say breaking the Muslim image, meaning aside from the image that they had of the terrorist, the fighter, they now come with an image on television that makes us look very, very complicit and compliant in our own mockery. When I say our own mockery, we make jokes about our own religion. We take the pious things and we ridicule them and we put them on television. And I'm here to tell you, they've known for a long time, brothers and sisters. You see, that person, it ain't always got to be the media. It doesn't have to be a TV show. But we've engaged in a certain type of behavior, for lack of a better word, a certain type of behavior where we are literally killing ourselves with the fruits and produce of things we put in the ground. Now they're coming back to choke us. In the words of Brother Malcolm X, we have a situation of chickens coming home to roost, and guess what? They're not halal chickens. This opponent, and I want to say this to everyone who's listening, you are in a war. This is not a game. This is not a dress rehearsal. You are in a war for the identity and the integrity of Muslims throughout the world, in mainstream throughout the world. They figured out that we have amnesia problems, that a child who is 20 today and was born in 2001 is 19 years old and never saw what people went through from 2001 moving forward. It was natural and it feels natural. And guess what? If they haven't had to go through that, they damn sure don't know what African American Muslims did or had to go through coming up all the way up to 76, the first resurrection, the second resurrection, and 65, where immigrants were able to come over on these H1, these visas. We are losing. We are losing. And we need to stop faking the funk. Because this person, these people, this thought process that frames Muslim identity now knows that the weakest link of it is American Muslim identity in the mainstream. They know it. You know why? Because they have cousins and they call overseas. They call over to Saudi Arabia. They call in the Arabian countries. They call over to Pakistan. They say, how did oppression work for you with those people over there? And they get the intel. And when you come here, they let you think that they don't know. They let you think that you can come here and win. They let you think that process because it's very, very important. Because it doesn't allow you to connect with brothers and sisters who are here. Everything is set diametrically opposed, brothers and sisters. Diametrically opposed. Let me tell you about the Muslim community. You'll have a masjid in the worst part of towns where services are needed, inspiration is needed. But that masjid, guess what? That masjid can get a permit to build another masjid, but they can't get a loan. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, the big masjid has $17 million to build a masjid, but they can't get a permit. They can't get a permit. And you say, what's the difference, Preach? What's the connection? It means that the narrative is being controlled. People are moving you around like pieces. And you have to understand that you're in a situation now, an environment now that does not respect the elderly. They do not respect the elderly. So if you're going to talk about Islam in America, you can go back to talking with Muslims who are in the Nation of Islam and Lost Foundation, Ahmadiyya, but you got to talk to the people before then who weren't even Muslim to understand what the criteria was for basic survival. Years, I was a road comic. I did shows all over the country. I mean, in the best of places and the worst of places. Kingman, Arizona, all the way to Kearney, Nebraska. And I had the same routine. I would go to the middle of the town. I would sit there and I would hope I'd see a black person. And that black person would tell me the history of that town in an honest phrase, an honest tone, an honest conversation. And that brother would sit there and I would do that routinely. And I thought I was on to something, brothers and sisters. Then one time in Scotts Bluff, Nebraska, there was a black man there. I thought he was black. He was a black man. And I had some car problems. And I had to get towed into the town of Scotts Bluff. And I saw him there because the show was pretty close to the garage. And I had to go change up and do the show. And I stopped. And this man reminded me of something that we have forgotten. I asked the black man, I said, my brother, where are the black people? He said, young fool. And of course, I was really talking to. He said, what'd you say? I said, where are the black people? He said, young fool, you need to be asking where are the Native Americans? He said, figure out that riddle and you figure out where the black man is on his way to. And I sat back and I felt a sense of shame. I felt a sense of inadequacy because he was 100% right. 110% right because we don't ask. You see what I'm saying? I had a friend of mine, he's a student. He's like a student of mine. I bought him in the game. I taught him about comedy. And I reached out to him for advice. You know, OGs don't normally reach out for advice, right? Let me give my mom a shout because my mom been feeling. Mama, thank you for coming on the show. Love you too. Thank you for your light. All right. Now, this is the OG. I'm an OG, meaning for a lot of these young performers, comedians, whatever, like the old hustlers say, I was through with it before you knew what to do with it. I asked as a test. I said, brother, how would you help me get my project together? And the brother said, well, you need a manager. I said, okay. But then the next thing he wrote was, because you are so set in your ways, basically stubborn and set in your ways, having a manager would be impossible. Which is to say that I'm inflexible. Which is to say I'm tied to certain traditions. And I can accept that. But I thought thought about it a minute. I said, whoa. You talking about routine. You talking about discipline. You talking about my ethic, that I could do it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And to quote the Honorable Mr. Louis Farrakhan, you either think I'm crazy or you think I know something. I would go with the latter. I know something. Maybe I know you more than you know. And maybe the argument is almost like I talked about those two masjids, that we're being separated. We're being separated. And I'm going to go even further. It might sound crazy or inflammatory. I'm going to go even further because we're going to take color out of the Islam game in the United States. This government, this oppression, this systematic farce, if you will, has framed a scenario just like the slave days. Just like the slave days. But instead of having house Negroes and field Negroes in Islam in America, you now have house Muslims and field Muslims. Let me say it again, house Muslims and field Muslims. And let me tell you something about every house Muslim I know. They never want to leave the house. Whatever they have to do, they're going to stay in that house. It's just like the old slaves. It's just like that man in Scottsbluff told me, if you really want to know about the black man here, you better find a Native American. If you can't find a Native American, you know what? It's problems. Think about this. Let it marinate a little bit. Back in the day with the house Negro and the slave Negro, the house Negro was a snitch. The field Negro was a free-thinking Negro. He rejected what he was hearing. He started thinking for himself. And the idea of being in the house, that those pictures of grandeur, it didn't appeal to him. It didn't appeal to him because even in the house, he understood that he was still oppressed. He still wasn't free. And the house Negro was so ill, so sick, and so toxified with this environment, intoxicated, if you will, that when the field Negro say, let's run away, the house Negro was like, no, let's not do that. Master treats us good. It's not that Master treated him good, folks. It's not that he was really afraid to run away, folks. He was afraid that if the field Negro ran away, Master would look at the numbers and tell him, you're going to have to leave the house and take that field Negro's place. And there you have it, brothers and sisters. We have a situation scenario where we don't listen to our teachers. We don't listen to our teachers. You could talk about COVID. You could talk about all those things. But before COVID happened, we didn't listen to our teachers. You know who you listen to? Our leaders. And we listened to leaders who had no teachers. They had no guides, no spiritual guides, no spiritual advisors. And we led ourselves to a process knowing what the answer was going to be, knowing what the outcome was going to be, and we still stood in line to take it. When you think of America right now, this is an America divided because we have leaderless organizations who have no teachers. They have rebuked their leaders, rebuked their teachers, rebuked their advisors. They've tried to push them off. Literally, there was an emotional COVID going on long before COVID came. It was the elimination and the downgrading of our elders in critical situations. Nobody wanted to hear from that. Do you ever see Donald Trump refer to who his mentors were, who his elders were? Because if you went back and found out who his mentors were, the people that guided they were corrupt people. They were corrupt people. Roy Khan was a corrupt individual. And I'm not saying this, it's not an LGBTQ, he was gay, but he was an evil man. Take the sexuality out of it. And this evil man just gave us this evil man, 45. Every day you see a level of treachery, a lack of mercy, and a lack of compassion exercised over and over and over again. Only in this time can the president sit up and argue for the rights of dead Confederate memory. And he does it every time. And the reason why we can't get up there is because we don't talk to our teachers. You see, I love this connection between African American Muslims and Native Americans and African Americans. Because, brothers and sisters, there was a communication that happened. See, the problem with my house Muslims these days, and I can take color out of it. So you see, the problem with house Muslims these days is the powers that be know they got them. The powers that be know they have them. And let me tell you how they know they have them. They let you think you win or you've won, but the reality is they're laughing behind your back. You know why? Because they know that you didn't fight for it. They gave it to you. The people before you had to fight for it and get nothing. They gave it to you. And in that space where they gave it to you, they know that you don't have that kind of heart. You don't have that kind of fight. You don't have that kind of fire. You're not that kind of dude. For all the protests that are going on, brothers and sisters, none of them will be. I bet you, and I'm not a betting man, I bet you some of this expensive oil right here, that the Black Lives Matter movement will not last longer than the bus boycotts in Alabama. Bet you. They don't have that kind of legs. You think you won, you didn't win. You didn't win. And I'll take Black Lives Matter, I'll deal with the criticism, but you didn't win. These people let you think you won. Because where were you before George Floyd passed away? Where were you? Where was the argument? Before Ahmaud Arbery, where were you? Where was the argument? Where's the argument for better schools? What's the argument for better education? What's the better argument for more access to loans, education? What's the argument for strengthening families? There was none. But a slogan, Black Lives Matter, that was developed back in 2013 around the Trayvon Martin, that becomes the acronym. So in 7 years, we've forgotten all about that, and we're going up and down the street with our protest signs yelling Black Lives Matter. And you don't understand. Black history matters. Native American history matters. Latino history matters. And the powers that be have these folks so intoxicated, brothers and sisters, that some of the Muslims that I love and respect have taken on coonish and blackface traits because they know that you didn't fight for it. See, when you win something, it usually requires a certain type. They gave it to you. And you look around, and there are other people who fought just as hard, but they weren't selected. You see, the problem with Muslim identity here in the mainstream, and I'm being dead serious, is they know that identity, particularly in the last 10 years, we ain't fought for nothing. Had some protests, got a couple things overturned, but you didn't win the big game, brothers and sisters. And they know that we don't have a foundation because we don't talk to one another because you don't know who your teachers are. There are shows on television with Muslims showing homosexuality and craziness and things like that. And you know why they stay on television? Because our teachers are no longer here to watch them. Mr. Farrakhan is 87 years old. I'm sure he don't watch Hulu. Muhammad Ali passed away years ago. He wouldn't approve. Malcolm X, who they espouse all the time, he wouldn't approve. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who some of you despise, he wouldn't approve. Preacher Moss, I have a voice. Hell, I don't approve. I can love you, but I don't approve. And it comes down to the fact, but we don't know our history. The American Muslim identity never had a Negro baseball team. They never had a Charlie Sappho. They never had all these things. They didn't have that. A Harlem Globetrotters. You didn't have things that placed in an interstitial the fact that your mere presence, your mere talent outside of everything that was going on was yours and yours alone, and you framed it. Not having those victories is killing us right now. Because you turn on TV now, 9/11 was almost 19 years ago. You take a kid that's 17 years old, he'll know nothing about what we were doing back in 2001, 2003, 2004, 2005. But he could turn on the television and so-and-so can have this show, and so-and-so should have this show, and so-and-so should have that show. And we're watching house Muslims, brothers and sisters, house Muslims guide, frame, and define what Muslim identity looks like. You have this thing going on right now, but you have two women in Congress who are under constant barrage, constant insults, constant threats, and you don't hear about them. You know who I'm talking about. You don't hear about them because the kids are watching this stuff. The kids don't vote. It's an ill-conceived evil genius that's just been pervasive in this community, and nobody's saying anything. I'm putting people on blast. You know what? If the show ain't right, say something. We always talk about the image of Muslim, image of Muslim. If you turn on the TV and it ain't right in your heart, say something. It may come at the expense of friendships. It may come at the expense of some money or whatever it is. But you can't go along to get along. That's not American Islam. That's not Islam, period. And that's damn sure not African-American Islam or the way of black Muslims in this country. We go along because it's right. And if you can't go along with them, you know what? I ain't worried about being a house Muslim. You know why? Because if you're thinking anyway, why you want to be in a house with somebody who disrespects you anyway? Go build your own damn house. What is it, fear? Yeah, it's fear. You know why? Because somebody goes, how do we build a house? That's why you need to talk to your teachers. They did it. You see, America, for lack of a better word, and this is my country, but America, for lack of a better word, has always been a sore loser. They don't like to lose. And it was always my theory that when Muslims came here in the 65 era, after the Civil Rights Act, when they came here, they made it a point to make sure that we would be divided, that nobody would be comfortable with one another. One, because it was too much to ask. They played on egos. They played on history. They looked at my immigrant brothers and sisters, and I love you, but they looked at what they did to you in your own country. They looked at how they defeated you in your own country with colonialism and things like that, and it had a blueprint. The blueprint for African Americans didn't work. We are always going to be in an adversarial relationship with this country because spiritually we're connected to something that they can't touch. Spiritually we're connected to something they can't replicate. They gave us Jesus, but we found God. And some of us need to get back to that situation, that scenario, because we're hypocrites. In this whole thing of COVID and the protests, a lot of us have become hypocrites. And when I say hypocrites, it means that we're not reaching out at the appropriate time, which is any time, to find guidance and education in some of the things that are vital to ourselves and our families and our communities. I always heard this story, man. My mama said something about this. She might remember. She said, it's funny how people treat God. She said, from a hospital bed in Winston-Salem, I think she was still on medication, but I remember this. My mother said, it's so interesting that when people are suffering and struggling, how they yell out for God. She said, but when they sinning and thinking they winning, they don't want God nowhere near. Maybe, just maybe, people thinking that they sinning and winning. Well, let me break this down for you, and I'm going to jump off, and let me wrap this up. My brothers and sisters, there has to be a new protocol. There's been no effective call to action. Every call to action for the Muslim has been in a reaction. We're not looking forward like we should be. We're not predicting that there could be a Muslim ban. We're not looking at how we affect policy. Where's the Muslim lobby, brothers and sisters? Do we have one? How are we not able, with this religion, to duly influence lawmakers to say, not so much, this is what the Muslim needs, but this is what the human being needs. This is how the human being flourishes. This is how we all win. Have we lost that skill, or have we lost that commitment? To my brother that said, I'm too set in my ways. Maybe I am. Maybe you don't understand that my ways were winning. Maybe you don't understand I've been talking to my elders, my teachers. And so my ways are founded in a tradition. Who showed you how to win? Me and my teachers. Stay blessed, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Shout Out Show. I guess you're supposed to hit subscribe. Share this out with people, folks. Share this one out with people. There's a share button on your Facebook. Click that, because I want this one to get out, because this is something that's been personal to me. I've been sitting on it a week, but I had to get it out because this is the situation and the situation scenarios that I'm seeing. Like my salam, Sister Aika. So I'm trying to let everybody know that we need to have a call to action. And this ain't no fundraising call. This is about foundational understanding about how we win. Put all the teachers in a circle, put the children around them, and let the children shut up and listen to the teachers tell us how they want. Do it. Do it in your masjids, do it in your house, do it in your street corners, but do it. I appreciate you. Thank you guys so much. I have to give a shout out real quick. You know, we have a sponsor now. All praises due. We got a sponsor. So I want everybody to just take a look at this. This is some oil. We're going to be giving this out big time, folks. We're going to be giving this out partially as a celebration for the 100th show. We got some gifts for everybody that tunes in. We're going to get 100 gifts to 100 people, inshallah. And I just really appreciate you guys supporting. So listen, my name is Preacher Mars. This is the SOS. I appreciate you listening to me. Hopefully you'll come back tomorrow. Hopefully you take some of the words that I said to heart. You know, I know sometimes I get a little excited. I get a little loud. Please forgive me. These ideas that are good ideas, they don't come from me. They come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if I said anything bad, that comes from my own ego, my own nafs. So forgive me for that. I hope to see you soon, tomorrow. You know, we're on 7 days a week. That's how blessed we are. 7 days a week. I'm like the black Muslim CNN. We like the live stream Waffle House. But I'm here standing on the shoulders of my teachers. Go check on your teachers. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.